successfully. So with that, we can see that they are amazing learning machine. Children are amazing learning machine. They learn very fast. Any normal baby can be placed into any family on earth and grow up to learn their culture and accept it as his own or her own, because they were not they were not wired to a particular culture. Since culture is non-instinctive, meaning that they were not born with any culture, so they can learn any culture in the world and accept it as their own. So it says, since culture is non-instinctive, it's not by instinct, we are not genetically programmed to learn a particular culture, meaning that we can learn anyone. At least Okoye can attest to that I've started learning Igbo small, and speaking Intakiri small. Okay? So we can learn.
Yes,
but by this age of mine, I have a dominant culture already. I have a mainstream culture already that I've called my own. But if you dump a new child in any family, he is ready to pick any culture as his or our own culture. Do we understand that? Every human generation potentially can discover new things and invent better technologies. The new cultural skills and knowledge are added onto what was learned in various generations. As a result, culture is cumulative. Is it true that culture is cumulative? Hello? Is culture cumulative? Let somebody talk with me now. I said you should mute your mic. Except where you are is not your house. But if you are in your room alone.
Yes.
I'm asking a question.
Yes, sir. It's cumulative. Culture is cumulative.
It is. The one you learn from your family, you see another one, you still learn, you add. For example, now Frank is not a Yoruba. If Frank now marry a Yoruba woman now, he will add that Yoruba culture to his own. The Yoruba wife, he add Frank own to his own, to our own too. So you just continue to accumulate. And by the time you begin to give back to your children, they won't see them as accumulated culture, they just see them as one culture. You get it? Because they were taught the two together as one. It is you, the parent, that will know that these are two different cultures. So here we say culture is accumulative. Due to this cumulative effect, most high school students today are now familiar with mathematical insight and solutions that ancient Greeks, such as Archimedes and Pythagoras, struggled their life to discover. You know, they spend all their life to get Pythagoras, you know, in trying to solve Pythagoras to get, that's what we call Pythagoras theorem. But you don't know that somebody spent eternity all their life to develop it. But now pick up children in SS1, SS2, they will tell you what is Pythagoras theorem. So it is accumulative. It is not taking them that donkey year that two Pythagoras, and they will still learn another one. If our children nowadays are learning what we didn't learn, they are learning coding, they are learning coding, they are learning another one they call, that one is mathematics, technology, I've forgotten the name, they put them together and call it one name. So they are learning so many things. So that tells you that culture is what? Is cumulative. Cultural evolution is due to the cumulative effect of culture. That is, when culture is evolving, it's as a result of cumulative effect of culture. We now understand that the time between major cultural inventions has become steadily shorter. You know, in those days, it took them longer time to have new discoveries. But nowadays, it took a shorter time to have cultural inventions, especially since the invention of agriculture, 8,000 to 10,000 years ago. The progressively larger human population after that time was very likely both a consequence and a cause of accelerating cultural growth. The more people there are, the more likely new ideas and information will accumulate. If those ideas result in a larger, more secure food supplies, the population will inevitably grow. In a sense, culture has been the human solution to surviving changing environment. This still takes us back to the first characteristics of culture, which we said it is what? Adaptive what? Mechanism. Adaptive mechanism. You know, but it has continuously compounded the problem. Okay, I think I'm not there yet. In a sense, culture has been the human solution to surviving changing environment, but it has continuously compounded the problem by making it possible for more humans to stay alive. Yes, this problem now is talking about problem of overpopulation, because culture has made it possible for people to live long. There are many things, cultural things that people are now using, and that is elongating their lives. So they are now seeing it as problem. And that is putting so much pressure on the facilities in the world. You see the ozone layer heating up. You see landslide. You see? So they see it as creating problems again and again. The ultimate cost of success of cultural technology has been a need to produce more and more food for more and more people, because culture has helped to keep us alive. And with that, we need to continue to produce more and more and more food. The invention of agriculture made it possible for our ancestors to have a more controllable and subsequently dependable food supply. It also resulted in settling down. You know, before agriculture, what we had was hunting and gathering. They were just hunting, walking around, looking for anywhere they will see edible fruits and food and hunting animals. Now we now have domestication of animals. They don't have to start walking around looking for animals. We now have agriculture. They don't have to continue to pick, to gather fruits. Now they can now go into full-time farming and plant and wait for it to yield the fruits and have domestication of animals and go into their backyard and take chicken and take goats and kill. So we said the invention of agriculture made it possible for ancestors to have a more controllable and subsequently dependable food supply. It also resulted in settling down. They now settle down, they are not moving around again, in a permanent communities. This in turn set the stage for further development in technology and political organization. Now people now settle down, we now need people, a particular aspect to give judgment over land, you know, that gave back to political organization. You know, you don't have to go into the issue of social contracts. You know, like what was his name now? Like what J.J. Rousseau, Thomas Hobbes, and John Locke said, that before the advent of social contracts, the human being is brutish, is nasty, is wicked, is mean. So that was the case then before we now have political organization, and that gives us a comfortable and conducive environment to live in, because we have a body who can oversee the distribution of things in the society. The inevitable result was more intensive agriculture, new kinds of social and political systems dominated by emerging elite classes. You know, this also gave back to the conflict between the rich and the poor, and that takes us to conflict theory of Karl Marx, relationship between the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. This is what led to that, because some people have more and they kept on keeping their SSEs, their profits, and reinvesting into it. You know, that is what gave birth to capitalism, according to Max Weber, when he talked about Protestant ethics and the spirit of capitalism. You know, some people, they just kept on reinvesting their capitals, and that gave birth to capitalism, which now made some people the ruler and some people. So that is that as a result of, you know, agriculture. So let's continue, please. The inevitable result was more intensive agriculture, new kinds of social and political systems dominated by emerging elite classes, the first cities, and ultimately the industrial and information revolution of modern times. City life brought with it the unexpected consequences of increased rate of contagious diseases. Yes, when we talk about industrialization, when people began to, when there was a mass exodus of people from the rural area to the urban area, you know, that is rural-urban migration. Yes, there was new life in the cities or in the urban center, but there was no provision to take care of this overcrowding they later experienced. And this led to different diseases in the cities. The city life brought with it the unexpected consequence of increased rate of contagious disease. Large, dense population of people make it much easier for viruses, bacteria, and other disease-causing microorganisms to spread from host to host. As a result, most cities in the past were periodically devastated by epidemics. You know, you can see the advantages and disadvantages that came with the cities as a result of the culture bringing about production of food, and, you know, many people increasing the population, and many people now move to the cities. It also came with its own challenges. The rate of cultural evolution for many human societies during the last 2 centuries has been unprecedented. Today, major new technologies are invented every few years rather than once or twice a century, or even less often, as was the case in the past. Likewise, there has been an outstanding increase in the global human population. It is worth reflecting on the fact that there are people alive today who were born before cell phones, computers, televisions, radios, antibiotics, and even airplanes. These new elderly individuals have been the human population doubled several times. The world that was familiar with them in their childhood is no longer here. It is as if they have moved to a new alien culture and society. Not surprisingly, they often have difficulty in accepting and adjusting to the change. The psychological distress and confusion that accompany this has been referred to as future shock, not culture shock. We have what we call future shock, and this is what those aged people are facing. They are faced with what? Future shock. Now, another thing here is culture change. You know, we say culture is not static. It is dynamic. Culture change. All culture change over time. Yes, that is another one, that culture change. I think I can just leave it like that and move ahead. Can I? We understand what we mean by culture change, that culture is not static. Can I go ahead, or you say expect me to explain this? I think we're on page 6, if I'm not wrong.
Page 60.
Can we continue? Can I just go over it? The subtopic says that
sir, please, if you can, even this culture shock, I don't really understand.
culture shock.
Yeah,
I just mentioned it in a passing. I just mentioned it in a passing. But culture shock simply means when you come in contact with a culture that is different from yours, that you have never seen before, you are bound to have a shock. That shock simply means a surprise. That what you have, okay, let me tell you this one. There is a culture here in Benue that if you are from that culture and your husband asks his friend that come visiting you, staying with you for about a week or two, for that 2 weeks you are going to be sleeping with the man. There's a culture like that in Benue. Have you heard of it before?
Yes, sir, you told us the last time. I remember you told us the last time. Yes.
Is it not a shock to you that
it is,
because yours, it's those are the things you refer to as culture shock. There's another one that if a lady has reached maturity of puberty, it is the father that will deflower the girl. It is their culture. So that is how the father will announce that my daughter is now a girl. Is it not a shock? That my daughter is now a grown-up girl, that she's ready for men. But it is the father that will deflower the girl. Is it not a shock?
It is.
So you get it. And when you get to a culture whereby brothers and sisters can marry themselves, is it not a shock? Until recently, when you hear about gay marriage, was it not a shock to you that man is marrying man? So those are the things you refer to as shock. Not that you are going to have electric shock. Are we together?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. What about culture change?
Culture change, that is where we are now. It's just telling that culture is not static. For example, what you are wearing now, Okoye, is not what your mother and your grandmother wore. Are they the same thing they wore?
No, sir.
What you are wearing as clothes were what your mother and your grandmother wore as underwear. Am I correct?
You are, sir.
So that is culture change. Do you understand what is culture change now? It is not static.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And very soon, what you are wearing now will soon fade away. Another one will still come. And by the time you are in your 60, 70, 80 years, you now see the new generation coming, you now ask them, what is this you are wearing? So what you'll be facing them will be called future shock. That's what we call future shock. Well, what some people now, those 8 people of 90, 100, what they are facing now is future shock, not culture shock. Because what they are saying now is different from what their generation saw. So what they are seeing now is what we call future shock. Am I making sense? Hello? Hello?
We are with you.
They are not with me, you people are not talking. Okay. So do you still want us to go through culture change, like I've explained to us? Okay, let me go through it. Wherever I stop, I stop. At least I'm moving. This is 6, 7, and I said 1 to 2 to 14 or to 15. So if I can take you to that 10 today, I've tried. What's it by time now with you over there? What's time? This is
15 minutes past 6.
So let me just see wherever I can stop by 7 I stop. We take it again tomorrow, and God will help us. At least I've tried. Abi, it's because I'm teaching you like children. I'm supposed to lecture. I'm not supposed to teach. If you allow me to lecture now, I can finish these 32 pages today. So let's continue from culture change, from what Okoye said. All cultural knowledge does not perpetually accumulate. At the same time, that new cultural traits are added. Some old ones are lost because they are no longer useful. For example, most city dwellers today do not have or need the skills acquired for survival in a wilderness. Now, for you to know that culture changes, are you still going back to hunting and gathering? Hello?
No, sir.
So you don't need wilderness experience for survival. Most will very likely starve to death because they do not know how to acquire wildlife, wild food, and survival. If I'm to take all of you to the jungle now, including myself, none of us will survive there because we did not develop that skill, jungle life. So most will likely starve to death because they do not know how to acquire wild food and survive the extremes of weather outdoors. What is more important in modern urban life are such things as the ability to drive a car, use a computer, and understand how to obtain food in a supermarket and restaurant. May the Lord forgive this generation. This is the generation that I've come to enjoy. So you can see culture changes. The regular addition and subtraction of cultural traits result in culture change. The addition and subtraction is what referred to as culture change. All culture change over time. None is static. Culture is dynamic. However, the rate of change and the aspect of culture that change varies from society to society. Some people it is their food. Some people it is their clothing. Some people it is their music. Even in Nigeria, music has changed too. So different aspects of culture are changing. They are not static. I can remember in those days, during our own time when we were growing up, it is foreign music. Any party you go, it is either you listen to Michael Jackson, Wako Jacko, name them, Steve Wonder, and blah, blah, blah. If you go to parties nowadays in Nigeria, before you will hear one foreign music, maybe when they have finished the party. Is it true? Is it true? I'm not hearing you. You are the one that asked
True, sir.
About culture change. I'm giving you an example now. Nobody is talking. Are we together?
We are together, sir.
Okay. Oh, no. Now, do you now understand what we mean by culture change? Chidima? Okoye?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
yes,
okay,
sir.
fine.
Thank
and
you.
Other people, do we understand what we mean by culture change? Because I can just drop this aspect, then I'll move to other one. Can we drop? Okay. So let's go straight to people usually are not aware of their culture. People usually are not aware of their culture. That is the last paragraph on page 6, if you are with me. The way that we interact and do things in our everyday life seems natural to us. You don't even know if what you are doing is practicing your culture. They are just natural. You don't know that this you are doing is part of your mainstay culture. We are unaware of our culture because we are so close to it and know it so well. For most people, it is as if their learned behavior was biologically inherited. Honestly, you do know that it is part of your main culture. It is usually only when they come into contact with people from another culture that they become aware that their pattern of behavior are not universal. When you are here in Nigeria, you do whatever you like, you eat, You believe that is the way of life of everybody. Until when you move from Nigeria to Cameroon to Togo, you now know that. So that is your own culture. It is not cultural universal. I can remember when I went to Cameroon during my service year rather, and we got to a place in Cameroon. They don't eat fish. They don't go. You dare not go to fish. You dare not go to river to kill fish. Fish is sacred, and they eat frog. That was a shock. To me, I thought everybody in the world eat fish. But when I got to that place and I saw that fish that we enjoy here is not for everybody to enjoy. Are we together? So some people, they don't know their culture. They thought it was for everybody. So people surely are not aware of their culture. The common response in all societies to other culture is to judge them in terms of the values and customs of their own familiar culture. This is what we call ethnocentrism. It is what we call what? Ethnocentrism. When you begin to judge other people based on your own value, based on your own culture, Igbo people don't get respect. It's because I came from the West and I began to judge them based on my culture. Then I am being ethnocentric. That's what we call ethnocentrism. Yoruba people, they are this and that. Just because they are not doing it the way you are doing it in your culture, you are being judgmental. That is, you are being ethnocentric. Being ethnocentric simply means judging other people based on your own culture. Do you understand what ethnocentrism is? Hello, please unmute your mic.
Yes, sir.
I need a response.
Yes,
I just want to know that you understand, so I will not continue dwelling on it for too long. Okay? So this is ethnocentrism. Being fond of your own way of life and condescending or even hostile towards other culture is normal for all people because it is strange to you. And you only see your own way of life as the best. Other people's way of life is archaic and out of place. Alien culture traits are often viewed as being not just different, but inferior, less sensible, and even unnatural. For example, European culture strongly condemn other societies that practice polygamy and the eating of dogs. Even people from the western part of Nigeria condemn the Calabar people and the Ondo people that eat dogs. There are dogs that eat feces. So you are being ethnocentric. And it is not only here, but even the European people, they condemn society that practice polygamy and eating dogs. Let me correct us here. Polygamy is an umbrella name. Thank God we have somebody in the house. Frank, I think you are studying sociology, am I correct? Frank?
Yes, sir, that is very correct. Very correct, sir. That is very correct.
Okay,
yes,
you are studying sociology.
That is correct.
So,
yes, very well, sir.
The issue of polygamy, is it,
yes,
can you say somebody from a polygamous home? Is it correct? Say somebody from a polygamous home.
No, it could be. No, I think it's probably what they refer to is polygyny, not polygamy.
Yeah, polygamy is an umbrella name that is divided into polygyny and polyandry. So you either come from a polygynous home or from a polyandrous home.
That's correct.
A polygyny is a man. A polygyny is a man with more than one wife, while a polyandrous home is a woman with more than one husband. So telling me that you are from a polygamous home, you have not told me if it was your mother or your father that has more than one spouse. You get it? So here, we said the Europeans also always frown at societies, other societies that practice polygamy, either polyandry or polygyny, and the eating of dogs. Behavior the European generally consider to be immoral or offensive. But this act is what we call ethnocentrism, because they are judging other people based on their own culture. Likewise, many people in the conservative Muslim societies, such as Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia, consider European women highly immodest and immoral for going out in public without being chaperoned by a male relative following them all around. That they go out alone. That is what they mean by chaperone, by a male relative, and without their bodies covered from head to toe, so as to prevent men from looking at them. So that is also being ethnocentric. That is ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is not characteristics only of complex modern societies. What does that mean? It is not only in the modern or complex societies that you see people being ethnocentric. Even people in small, relatively isolated societies are also ethnocentric in their own view about others. By the time people from that small community come to the city and they see you, okay, that one is too big. How many of you have heard of Coma Hill before? Coma Hill. Where's Coma Hill? Anybody in the house? Where's Coma Hill? Answer me, please. Coma. Where's Coma Hill? Hello?
Somewhere in the north.
Where's Coma Hill? Where's Coma Hill?
Somewhere in the north.
Somewhere in the north. Is there a place that is called somewhere in the north?
Yes, sir.
I know many of you are quickly checking your phone now to look for Coma Hill. Coma Hill is located in Adamawa, Yola in Adamawa State.
Adamawa.
And do you know in Coma Hill, they don't wear clothes? Both male and female, they don't wear clothes. And there's no permanent wife, there's no permanent husband.
Okay.
Now, if you go to Coma Hill, dressed from your head to your toe, you are an abnormal human being to them. So this just confirms the saying that people in small and relatively isolated societies are also ethnocentric in their views about others. That just confirmed that. That's the point I was trying to make. I believe you understand what is called ethnocentrism now. Hello? So our ethnocentrism can prevent us from understanding and appreciating another culture. Instead of which to appreciate other culture, you condemn them. When anthropologists study other societies, they need to suspend their own ethnocentric judgment and adopt a cultural relativity approach. So what do you mean by cultural relativity? Cultural relativity simply means that culture are not the same all over the world. That culture is what? Is relative. Cultural relativity simply means that what is wrong in Nigeria might be acceptable in America. For example, gay marriage is approved, same-sex marriage is approved in America. But in Nigeria, if you try it, now 25 years in imprisonment. So you don't need to judge them based on your own culture because your own culture does not permit it. So when you accept every man by their culture, then what you have displayed rather, is what we call cultural relativism. Do we understand that? That culture is relative. Let every man live. Take every man by what they are. That is cultural relativism. Are we together? Do we understand that now?
Yes, sir.
All of them are there in our house, may I do office, they shout, yo. So very soon I'll be going to my house too. So that's the cultural relativism. We started this class by what time? I think by 5 on the dot, around 5 thereabouts. And this is our 6:33. Okay, we are done with cultural relativity. That is, they try to learn about and interpret the various aspects of the culture they are studying in reference to that culture, rather than to their anthropologist's own culture. Meaning what? They judge everybody based on their culture. They are not using their own culture as a standard or yardstick to measure other people's culture. That is what they did. This provides an understanding of how such practices as polygamy can function and even support other cultural traditions. Without taking a cultural relativity approach, it will otherwise be difficult, for example, to comprehend why women among the Maasai cattle-herding people of Kenya might prefer to be one of several co-wives rather than have a monogamous marriage. Do you see that? The women among these Maasai, these cattle-herding people of Kenya, they rather prefer being the number 6, number 7 wife rather than to remain in a monogamous marriage. Can you see that? Can you see different folks, different strokes, or different strokes with different folks? Where you are crying in Nigeria, now me and my husband, oh, go and have your own, oh. Chidima, Chidi baby, you know they talk? Hello? Hello?
Hello, sir.
You know they talk, and they talk to you personally. Chidima.
Chidima. Okay, I'm not Chidima.
Am I speaking with Okoye?
Yes, sir.
But I heard your voice. That's why I was talking to you. I said you can see these people, the Maasai people, they are women. They would rather prefer to be a co-wife rather than being in a monogamous family, marriage. But here in Nigeria, now me and my husband. So you can see different culture with their own belief. I don't need to condemn them. So that means if you are among those people as a man and you have one wife, that means something is wrong with you. So you can see how culture has indeed, shaped the life of different people in different parts of the world. So let's go. Taking a cultural relativity approach is not only useful for anthropologists, it is a very useful tool for diplomats, businessmen, doctors, even social workers, and anyone else who need to interact with people from other societies and even other subcultures within their own society. However, it can be emotionally difficult and uncomfortable at first to suspend one's own cultural values in this situation. But for you to have headway, you must, take every man by his own culture. From an objective perspective, it can be seen that ethnocentrism has both positive and negative values for a society. The negative potential is obvious. Ethnocentrism results in prejudices about people from other culture. You develop hatred for them, prejudice, they are this, they are that, and the rejection of their alien ways. When there is contact with people from other culture, ethnocentrism can prevent open communication and result in misunderstanding and mistrust. This will be highly counterproductive for businessmen trying to negotiate a trade deal, or even just neighbors trying to get along with each other. The positive aspect of ethnocentrism has to do with the protection that it can provide for a culture by causing a rejection of the foods, customs, and perception of people in other culture. It acts as a conservative force in preserving traditions of one's own culture. It can help maintain the separation and uniqueness of culture. So you can see the two sides of ethnocentrism, because if you open up to other culture, you are going to have subculture. It's going to dilute your own culture. And if you close up to other culture, it will help you to maintain the separation and uniqueness of your own culture. So, and again, as we said, ethnocentrism is not good for doctors, it's not good for business people, because you are in trouble. You may not make headway if you are being ethnocentric. Now, we do not know all our own culture. It is true. No one knows everything about his or our own culture. In all societies, there are bodies of specialized cultural knowledge that are gender specific. They are known to men, but not women, or vice versa. In many societies, there are also bodies of knowledge that are limited largely to particular social classes, occupations, religions, religious groups, or other special purpose associations. Is it true that we are not familiar with all our own cultures? Is it true?
Yes, sir.
Because you'll be surprised by the time you get to the midst of fishermen and they tell you this we don't do. You'll be surprised. But I belong to this society, but you don't belong to that profession. So there is a culture in that profession that you don't know. Okay, I visited with two other people, visited my landlord in Enugu here. He just moved to his new house and the son relocated to UK. So we visited him because he invited us. So we couldn't make it on that day. And this man presented to us drink. And one of us, we were two male and the lady, a woman that went with us. And this other man was about to, open the drink and serve the drink. The woman said, no, just touch it. Let the men touch it. That it was a responsibility to share it. For our end, anybody can share anything. But here, it is a taboo. You get it. So you may not know all the culture, all the cultural traits where you belong to, even among your people. You are bound not to know everything. So we said here, we do not know all our culture, all of our own culture. Gender-based skills, knowledge, and perceptions largely stems from the fact that boys and girls, to some extent, are treated differently from each other in all societies. That is true. While there may be considerable overlap in what they are taught, there are some things that are gender specific. In the Western world, for instance, it is more common to teach boys about the skills of combat and how machines work. Girls are more often exposed to the subtleties of social interaction and the use of clothing and makeup to communicate intentions. Not surprisingly, men are more likely to know how to fix their car or computer, while women generally are better at predicting the outcome of social interaction and make finer distinctions in fabrics and color terms. You can test your own gender-related cultural knowledge with the following picture of relatively common items from Northern America. Even here in Nigeria, among our own culture, you can see there are many professions in large-scale societies. Each one usually has its own terminology and specialized tools. Lawyers, medical doctors, soldiers, and other specialists and use numerous technical terms in their professions To make it even more obscure to outsiders, these professionals often use abbreviations to refer to their technical terms. For instance, orthopedic surgeons commonly refer to a particular kind of knee operation as ACL surgery, like the one that happened to my player in Arsenal, Georgian Timber. It was Achilles something something, they call it. ACL stands for anterior cruciate ligament. Most people outside of medical fields who have not had this surgery are likely to know where this ligament is and what it does, let alone know what the abbreviation means. So you can see different professions with different culture. You know, they can tell you that when there is a case in the hospital and they tell you that it was a BID. What's the meaning of BID? Anybody? It's a medical term. What is the meaning of BID? Can anybody tell me?
Brought in dead. Brought in
You
dead.
can see, I know you are a nurse. That's why you know it. But somebody else will say, now bidding now. You are bidding for what? That is brought in dead. And if God want to catch you, go and carry a doctor note and tell me you want to read it. You won't understand anything. They write their jargons for the nurses to understand. Do we understand that? On that aspect, that we do not know all about all our culture, either in our profession, there are different professions with their own jargons. Do we understand that? So the next one is culture gives us a range of, permissible behavioral pattern. Culture gives us a range of permissible behavioral pattern. What page is this? Page 8, Jesus Christ. And I said to page 14, I see how 6 pages to go. I think I've tried for you, Sha. What's time? My God, 8:45, 6:45. Let me quickly take this. Culture gives us a range of permissible behavioral patterns. Culture commonly allows a range of ways in which men can be men and women can be women. Culture also tells us how different activities should be conducted, such as how one should act as a husband, wife, parent, child. It is planted in our hearts by a different culture that we belong to. Do you know culture taught us different things that, do you know it is believed that culturally men should be strong. If the same thing happened to a boy and a girl, it is expected that the girl should cry. It is expected that the boy should not cry. Is it true? And they say, and you are a boy, you see the way you are crying. As if boys don't feel pain. Hello? As if it is not the same flesh we carry. As if it is not the same blood we carry. If things happen to a couple, it is expected that the husband will be the one that will still be petting the wife, though both of them feel the pain. That is the way culture, virtually universal culture or most culture, has wired us. These rules of permissible behavior are usually flexible to a degree. Yes, it is not inscribed in a stone. That is what is meant, that it is somehow flexible. There are some alternative rather than hard rules. In North America, for instance, culture tells us how we should dress based on our gender, but it allows us to dress in different ways, in different situations, in order to communicate varied message and statuses. So that tells you it is not inscribed in a stone. Even in Nigeria here, it is believed that women tie wrapper, men wear trousers. But there's some cultural way of dressing among the Niger Delta. There are men, they tie wrapper. Is it true? Hello.
Yes, sir.
I need responses, please. I need responses. I'm feeling as if I'm the only one here. If I'm in a class, physical class, I will understand. I don't know if the network has gone again. So occasionally, we are permitted, culture permits, otherwise alternatives. Culture permits alternatives. It happens here in Nigeria. Occasionally, people wear different, different attire to go with the situation in order to communicate varied message and statuses. The clothing pattern of women in this society can be particularly rich and complex. Their clothing can be intentionally business-like, recreational, or what is sexually attractive, ambiguous, neutral, or even repulsive. North American women are generally more knowledgeable than men about the subtleties of using clothing and other adornments or communicate their intentions. With what they wear, they pass different messages. That is why once a wife is telling her husband, my husband, that woman likes you. And the man will say, lie for where? Fair woman. What men cannot see, they are seen seriously. And with that, we see them playing serious defense mechanism against such women and their husband. Chiamaka, is it true?
So I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but it's like you're saying the truth.
Every liar shall have their portion somewhere. Every liar shall have their portion somewhere. Women see farther and they see faster than men. Even when other women are playing fast game, and the husband is somehow not seeing it or noticing it, it won't take a woman more than he will understand the message that woman is passing, because she's a woman too. Even the men might see the ignorance of what other women are doing.
You're on point, sir. You're on point. You're correct.
That is just it. Their housemaid, madam, your work is over in this house. By the time the lady begins to wear all these seductive, the woman will say, okay, from now on, you'll be wearing uniform. The man will not see what is happening. The woman has seen the end from the beginning. You get it? So the uniform or clothing also pass messages of different occasions in our society. I believe we all understand that. Let me quickly move. The range of permissible ways of dressing is talking about dressing, that page 8. So we said culture no longer exists in isolation. That is page 9. Are we there? Cultures no longer exist in isolation. Let me just explain this to us. That no single culture is existing alone again. That what we have is mixture of different culture with your own normal culture. Chiamaka, do you eat amala? Chiamaka?
No, sir. Sir?
You don't eat amala?
No, sir.
Okay. What food from other tribe do you eat?
None, sir.
None.
Yes, sir.
My God. Are you sure?
I'm sure, sir.
Are you saying that culture still exists in isolation?
Maybe.
It's not true. It's not true, because the clothes you are wearing is not your cultural clothes. Talk another one. That means you are not in isolation. It's not only in the area of food. It's not only in the area of food. Not only in the area of food. That's the point I'm making. It is highly unlikely. It is highly unlikely that there are any societies still existing in total isolation from the outside world. It is not possible. It is highly unlikely. Even small, out of the way tribal societies are now being integrated to some extent into the global economy. That was not the case a few short generations ago. Some of the societies in the island of New Guinea were unaware of anyone beyond their homeland until the arrival of European Australian miners in the 1930s. A few of the Indian tribes in the upper Amazon basin of South America remained unaware of the outside world until explorers entered their territories in the 1950s and 1960s. Members of these same New Guinea and Amazonian societies today buy clothes and household items produced by multinational corporations. They are developing a growing knowledge of other cultures through schools, radios, and even televisions and internet. So this tells every one of us that no culture exists in isolation. Do we understand this part, this subtopic? There are no culture now exists in isolation. Do we understand it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Now the next one is method of learning about culture. Method of learning about culture. This is page 9. Please, can we stop it here? Then we take it from here tomorrow. That is from this page 9 to page 14. Then we pick it from page 20, from page 22. Can we do that? Because it is 7, almost 7 now. This is 8:55. If I should pick this one now, it might take me, okay, let me just talk about it before going to participant observation. Method of learning about culture. Anthropologists learn about the culture of another society through field work and first-hand observation in that society. This kind of research is called ethnography. Since culture primarily relates to the way people interact with each other, it is not possible to adequately observe it in a laboratory setting. You can't bring it. You have to go to the field. Ethnography, go to the field, observe it, participate in it. That is participant observation. Imagine how much more will be learned about the actual pattern of interaction of a typical American family by living in their home, rather than asking one of the family members in a college or university office. Cultural anthropologists also do systematic comparisons of similar cultures. They bring these similar cultures together and they do comparison. This is called ethnology. An example of an ethnological study will be a comparison of what cultures are like in societies. What cultures are like in societies that have economies based on hunting and gathering rather than agriculture. The data for this sort of ethnology will come from the existing ethnographies about these people. In other words, an ethnology is essentially a synthesis of the work of many ethnographers. By the special grace of God, we continue observation tomorrow. By the grace of God, we start on the dot of 4:30. Thank you very much. I think you have been able to cover some ground. So we are on page 10 now. So before we know it, we get to page 14 tomorrow. Then we pick from page 22, and we can as well touch everything if possible. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your night.
So, sir, I have a question, sir. Can I ask a question?
Is that from Frank?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, I have two.
So what
I have two questions. Probably I have two questions. I don't know.
Okay,
Let me just rush them. Yeah, I know you talked about what they call it now. You talk about layers of culture. You talk about the mainstream culture, which also regarded to as dominant culture or subculture. And you talk about cultural universal. Is there anything like if culture is universal, why are some society regarded to as more cultured? Like, for instance, some people regard some society to be more cultured than the other. That is one. Is there anything like counterculture? That is another one. And again, you talk about ethnocentrism, you talk about cultural assimilation. Those are responses to different cultural practices or culture, as it may be. But you didn't talk about zero-centrism. I don't know.
Xenocentrism.
I don't know. Probably it's not relevant. Yes,
but I
not
mentioned
relevant.
I mentioned it during the last class we had. Those are the concepts I mentioned. I said xenocentrism has to do with you seeing your own culture as being inferior to other culture. Why ethnocentrism is you seeing your culture as being superior to other people's culture. Judging other people's culture based on your own culture and see your own as being superior. That is ethnocentrism. Xenocentrism is opposite, seeing your own culture as being inferior. And that is where we are today, seeing different people trying to be like an American or being more Briton than the British themselves. So that is, xenocentrism. And that has a huge negative effect on our culture and on our economy.
Counterculture.
Is that what? What did you say?
It's like counterculture. Is there anything like counterculture?
No, counterculture is a culture that is being developed against the dominant culture. When you say something counter, is working against. We could see some aspect of these what do we call it? Some aspects of these xenocentric to be counter to the dominant culture. For example, we talk about our mode of dressing, and the way children are dressing nowadays is counter to the dominant culture. Although what you call counterculture could be seen as their own subculture. We have the youth culture now, they call it youth culture. And that might be counter to the existing culture. Anything counter is against. I hope you understand that.
Yeah, very well.
Counter the dominant culture. So is seen as something that is countering the existing dominant culture. So it is counter. And like we said, that subculture doesn't last forever. It fades away. Another phase will still come in. That was what I was asking Chiamaka the other time, that what she's wearing now is not what her grandmother and mother wore. And before she knows it, what she's wearing now will still fade away. Another stage will still come. In fact, what is happening is that youth of nowadays are digging deep to unearth what has been, and they are calling it a new culture. It's like confirming what the Bible says, there is nothing new under the heaven. But when you see a counterculture, it's against the dominant culture. It's against the culture that is permitted in the society. That's why they saw it as countering the existing and the permitted culture in the society. Then what is the other thing you ask?
I talk about you talk about cultural university and universal.
Cultural universal.
Why are some society regarded as more cultured than the others?
Well, like we know that no culture is inferior to another culture. It is because we have come to accept our culture being inferior, and that's why we see them as more cultured than we are. What you don't accept will not fly. And there are some things that, okay, for example, we have some barbaric behavior that are still being practiced in some culture. Okay, for example, now we still have parents giving out their children out in marriage. We have parents, we have some people where they are still practicing female genital mutilation. Do you get it? And culture that are still practicing those behavior, they are seen as not cultured because they are far away from what is accepted, universally accepted. You get it? And those who are following the universally accepted culture are seen as being more cultured or more cultured than others who have not yet there. And what we refer to as the cultural universal culture are some traits that could be seen everywhere in the world. We said marriage is a universal culture. We saw that dividing house chores, dividing society on the basis of what do I call it now? On the basis of their sex or gender.
Yeah, gender, yes.
Is a cultural universal. So these are universal traits. We talk about having privacy. It's a universal culture, meaning that it is in every culture of the world that people have what they call privacy. Those are what we refer to as cultural traits or universal culture. We said communicating with verbal language. Is it a universal culture? It is. Using age and gender to classify people as teenager, senior citizen, women and men. That's a universal trait. And these are cultural universal. What we mean by cultural universal are traits that are common to all societies of the world. That's what we mean. Making jokes and playing games. It is universal. There is no culture in this world that doesn't have jokes and doesn't have games. No matter how primitive that game is, they have game. Do you agree with me? Then we have rules to regulate sexual behavior. It is in every society. So these are what we refer to as cultural traits that are universal or cultural universals. Is there any other thing you ask that I have not answered?
No, sir, it's perfect. Perfectly understood.
Thank you, sir. So by the grace of God, we meet again tomorrow by 4:30. So thank you. Have a wonderful night's rest. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
You too.
you too, sir. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Chidima.
I've christened you, Chidima, with your Chiamaka.
Hey, say Chiamaka. Nice, sir. Don't mind Lami. Hey.